Right then, let's get started. I'm just going to share my screen so you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so if that's all worked, you should be able to see a little drop of my iPad there. Just so I know you can see it, can you just drop a thing and then someone drop a thing in the comments saying, yeah, I can see that, or no, whatever. Should say smarter nutrition for lean muscle. So just can someone drop a thing in the chat to say, yes, it's there. Cool, great, thanks, Lisa. Right, so this will look like a PowerPoint presentation. It's not. There, I can write on this so we can. If you've been on one of these things before, you know how it works. Right. So first of all, this is an interactive workshop. So thanks for coming, but this isn't a dual surfing activity. So if you've got your phone in your other hand and you're just scrolling through, put that down, get a pen and paper, because you will benefit from taking notes and making a bit of notes here. Okay, before I did when I did the Calendly link, which you all filled in, I asked were there any questions, and people who submitted questions are here. Feel free, if there's anything you want to ask in the chat, just put ask, #ask, and then the question you want, and we'll cover that at the end. These are the ones that have been submitted beforehand. Okay, so this is a Q&A seminar, or whatever you want to call it, based on the build program. The build program consists of a certain amount of elements. We've got mindless eating, pointless workouts, and difficult to stay on plan. They're all problems people face before they can get their perfect body, whatever that is. And in build, what we do is we look to change that to smarter eating, productive workouts, and easy to stay on plan. So the direct opposite. And today we are over in the smarter eating. Let's just try that again. In the smarter eating category here. We're going to be delving into on plan and a little bit of off plan nutrition here, but it's definitely all nutrition stuff today. We're not doing about habits, not doing about workouts. The last one was about workout. Just go and check it out on YouTube if you want to. Right, so first of all, whenever we look at any problem, I always look at the frustrations that people face, the things that are really winding them up. And from talking to build members and from working with clients for over 10 years or so, generally people are confused. They don't know what to eat. Let me just, sorry, someone just popped into the waiting room there. Let's get them in. Okay, so generally they are confused. They don't know what to eat, as in they don't know, should they be eating early? Should they be eating carbs? Should they be more protein? How many calories to eat? So that's the main thing, especially with nutrition. There's so much stuff around about, oh, you should be drinking red wine for heart health. You should be not eating certain foods because they're bad for you, although they're supposed to be good. So that's the first thing. Then we've got no time to prep food. And there is a misconception that people have that they have to spend hours and hours prepping food in order to stick to a plan. And that is just not the case, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, I should say. So that's something we delve into as well. But people do think they have to prep all their food from scratch, which is absolutely not the case. And then because they haven't got the right food, they're not eating the right way, the next frustration, and I'm assuming you all work out here, because build and what I teach and what I coach is about training in the gym as well as eating properly. There's no energy for workouts. So people haven't got enough energy. They start a workout, burn out, or they haven't got the amount of protein or whatever to build muscle. So their workouts are rubbish. And this is a lot of the time stemming from their nutrition. Okay. Okay. As I go through and I'll list these things, when you see the notes thing pop up, please feel free to say anything that you're around that topic. So I'm just going to go through the asked questions. David, how to easily get enough macros into my diet? Micro. I thought that was a spelling mistake, David. Micros, not macros. So micronutrients. Okay, I'll consider that when I come into it. So I thought that's a spelling mistake. Okay, nothing just yet. Good. Right. So what do we want? So we've got things we're struggling with. What do we want? Ideally, and I'm summarizing here because people have lots of different wants. People have specific things they want, but generally when people talk to me about what they're looking for with their nutrition is a clear plan of what, when, how to eat, and how they can construct their diet so they know what they're doing to get the body that they want. And notice I don't really talk about like losing fat loads or whatever, because Build's not a fat loss program, and what I teach is not all about fat loss. It's about getting the body you want. Most of the time that does incorporate a little bit of fat loss, but also we look to build more muscle. So we're a stronger, fitter individual, not just someone who just sheds fat off and looks really stringy. And also, people would like to fuel their workouts properly. If you like training, and I hope everyone here does like going to the gym, if you don't, you're probably on the wrong call, but you should enjoy exercising. It's something that's great. It helps build muscle, helps keep you fitter. You want to fuel the workouts properly, and nutrition is a massive, massive part of that. So if we can get the nutrition right, we're going to be less stressed because we're going to be eating foods that we like and in the right proportions and the right amounts at the right times. But also when we go to the gym to exercise, or wherever you exercise, some people exercise at home, they're going to have the energy to fuel that. So that's the two major wants. Is there anything else that people want from their nutrition? Any things that they're looking for by getting their nutrition right? Pop it into the chat now. I'm just going to take a little sip of water and have a look at that. Andrew, what is the most important factor when considering the nutrition plan? For example, focus on protein, consider a certain food as a staple part of the diet. Okay, Andrew, I'll come back to that in a little while when we get into that sort of stuff. Anything that anybody else would like from having a good nutrition plan? Pop it in the comments there. I'll come back to the notes in a second. Okay. So there's certain things that are frustrating us. There's certain things that we want to happen, but why aren't those happening? And that's the mistakes. So the mistakes that I see a lot of people making, and this isn't, people will make one or two or even all of these mistakes, but they're things that I call friction that stand in your way to getting what you want out of your nutrition and training. So I call that the friction. So first of all, there's no planning. People don't plan out, firstly, their meals. They don't plan out when they're going to eat. They don't plan out for social events. They don't plan out for things that might go wrong. And so ultimately from that, things just take over their lives and they make mistakes. Then we've got no tracking. Now, when I say about tracking, people think that tracking has to be, oh, I'm going to log everything in MyFitnessPal every single day, right down to the last gram. Some people do that and they get really good results from it. When I'm talking about tracking, I'm more tracking on a, I would say, a global scale of what's your eating on the average over the week, because the body works in averages. And people either don't track at all, they track incorrectly by using an app which isn't the best for database. MyFitnessPal being one of those, because there's people can enter their own stuff and make real mistakes. Or they over-track, and because they're over-tracking, it becomes more of a stress, and that then leads on into, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm just going to eat some chocolate or something like that. Okay, great. Still getting dodgy sound. Is everybody else's sound okay? Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Okay, sound is okay. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Fine. It might be that the internet's not so great, so it might be cutting out. However, I am recording this, so if there's any gaps because the internet goes down, it will be on the recording. Okay, so I'm going to check everyone else. Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll come back to those questions in a minute. Thanks. Right. So, and the last sort of key mistake people make here is focusing too much on their macros. I know with someone said something about micros as well, micronutrients. Macros are protein, carbs, and fats. Also alcohol, if you want to count that as one of your macros. But only a couple of my clients have actually counted that properly in their scheme. Normally, it's protein, carbs, and fats. You can get really, really, I suppose, anal about your macros, and that can really start to impact your life. So although macros are important, they're not the most important thing to be considering. We're going to come on to that in a bit. Macros, yes, you do need to think about, say, how much protein you're having. That's quite important. But say if you're overeating or undereating calories, then protein becomes less important, and carbs and fats. So we'll come on to that in a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to look at the questions. Views on having fasting window. Okay, I'll come back to that, Vicky. Intra-workout drinks, meals. Going to do that in a little while, Andrew. Okay, good. Right, good. Okay, yes, all those things we're planning on doing in a bit. Okay, good. Right. So what I want to think about is a metaphor with this, the three little pigs. Now, hopefully, everyone remembers the three little pigs. Nursery time, fairy tale. I think it's one of those. If you don't know it, then the three little pigs is where the big bad wolf comes to get the pigs. They've all built houses, but only one of those pigs survives. The wolf blows down the house because the pigs haven't built the houses properly, except for the last one who got it all right and built it properly. So he doesn't get eaten, but the other two do. So rather a sadistic childhood nursery rhyme or fairy tale. But the idea is very sound when it comes to your nutrition plan, because people I talk to a lot of the time will have either a loose plan that they're following, but they haven't planned for, see, when life gets in the way and friction happens, and say their kids are late home from school, or the kids are ill, or they have to work late at a meeting. And because of those things, because it upsets their very straw house plan that they've got, the friction, the big bad wolf comes along, blows it all down. It's like, what's going to happen here? And they go straight off to Greg's or into the fridge for some chocolate or whatever else. And the plan goes up the wall. So in terms of the three little pigs, we want to get the house that's been built out of stone and cement, not the one that's been built out of straw. And the problem here is that, as the pigs didn't know, they didn't know that the house built out of straw isn't going to be a good house. Yes, they can sit in it, it suits the purpose, but if something bad comes along, immediately it goes out the window. Okay. Yeah, I'm great at my nursery my nursery rhymes. Yeah, that's the next seminar. Okay, so I was going to draw the triangle here, but I think there's a lot to get through from the questions. So what I want you to think about is a tracking hierarchy. Now, when I talk about tracking, remember I said this, now it doesn't have to be every little thing that you need to track. The main thing that you need to get right first, and we're going to go into this in a deeper dive in a second. The main thing to think about is calories. Now, it doesn't matter if you're eating the right protein, the right carbs, the right fats, whatever. If the calories are wrong for your goal, whatever that may be, then it's unlikely you're going to reach it. Now, this could be a calorie deficit, this could be calorie maintenance, this could be calorie surplus if you're trying to bulk up or build muscle. Most people are looking for a slight calorie deficit because they have a little bit too much body fat and they're trying to lose that. Some people I work with are incredibly lean and they want to bulk up. And so we're looking at calorie surpluses here. Now, if you haven't got the calories right and the calorie targets right from the beginning, then everything else can just go out the window. It's not going to work. So we're going to go into a minute about how to calculate calories. Then what I'd say is the next thing to be really mindful of is your protein intake. Now, protein intake, a lot of people think protein is just for muscle. Yeah, really important. Protein is good for building muscle, but it also contributes towards your immune system, building enzymes, building peptides such as growth hormone, insulin, all those sorts of things. And those things are really important for body function. Now, little story, a little while ago, when I was studying for my ISSN, I had the honor, extreme luck to attend a lecture by Kevin Tipton, who's died now, unfortunately, but he was one of the top guys in protein studies in the UK, maybe even the world. And we had a conversation because when you hear people talk about protein, they'll say, oh, if you have too much protein, it's bad for you, and you have to be in a certain window of protein intake. And anything more than that is bad for you. Now, we had quite an interesting discussion in this lecture. And he said, yeah, while there is a certain amount of protein you need to have for muscle building, going in excess of that has not been proven to be harmful. And the other thing we were talking about was, say, people who are, let's think about people like Thor, you know, the guy was the mountain in the Game of Thrones, but also is a very good strongman as well. His protein intake is massively off the scale, massively past what is the researched amount for the best amount of protein, and so a load of bodybuilders, strength athletes, and the discussion centered around, well, yeah, you can have a certain amount of protein for muscle building, but also because these other functions in the body rely on protein. If you are a high performance individual exercising a lot, there is an argument that more protein actually makes you a more efficient machine in terms of providing enough protein or excess to your needs protein to be able to fight illnesses because of your immune system, to produce more enzymes for digestion, to produce more peptides for body function. So although protein, there is people who say you have any more than a certain amount is useless, and we're going to go into the amounts in a minute. Actually, I would argue that it's not, and going over your protein is never anything to worry about. Going under your protein on a certain amount, I think, is something that if you are serious about building muscle, you need to be aware of. Then the next thing on my triangle is going to be carbohydrates. Carbohydrates give you the energy for training, give the energy for muscle contraction. Fats can do that as well, but at a very low level, very slower level. So they're not optimal for high intensity or high or muscle contraction, which is mainly what gym workouts are. Fats after that, and honestly, with fats, I've never seen the research on it. There's nothing clear and concise as to what is the optimal amount of fat. Plenty on protein and carbohydrates, but not really. Okay, sorry, back in the room. Hopefully I won't cut out again. So keep my hand off the keyboard. So yeah, in terms of research for fats, there isn't anything that's conclusive on that. So I always stick fats up here right after everything else. And then timing is something that people really do sometimes get caught up on. Like, oh, what about my pre-workout meal? What about my post-workout meal? That's important to a degree, but if you haven't got these things right here and these things to fuel your workout, timing of your pre-workout snack is the least of your worries. So tracking hierarchy, what we think is important to get right. And this is what I said about tracking doesn't have to be everything every single day, right down to the last macro. It does need to start with calories, then protein, then into carbohydrates. And as you get more adept at tracking and logging and being more skillful with your meals, then you should think about potentially incorporating more tracking metrics there. Okay, let's move on. Everything okay, understandable so far. Put into the chat if there's anything that's not clear, and I'll address that in a second. So how many calories do we need? Now, there's loads of calculators out there. I've got my own. It's right here. If you go to bknutrition.com/calculator. If you want to do that while I'm on the call here, feel free to do that. It'll give you your calories. When you go in, it'll ask you a few details about your height, your weight, your age, if you're male or female, and your activity. All these things are really important to calculate your calories. And the way it works is we have something called RMR, which is resting metabolic rate. This is the amount of calories you burn existing. So as you're sat there watching me, enjoying the information that's being doled out, your resting metabolic rate, pretty much. There is something called basal metabolic rate, which is basically if you're in a coma, but it's not really relevant to real world calculations. So base metabolic rate is slightly lower than resting metabolic rate. Normally, when people talk about how many calories you're burning, they're talking about resting metabolic rate. And then you have something called your PAL. So PAL is your personal activity level. So this is a measurement of how active you are in the day. So you think about RMR as just you existing in the day. So if you did nothing else but sat on the sofa all day, breathing and just living, that's your RMR. And your PAL is anything you do in the gym, any walking around, anything you do when you're not at rest. Now, for most people, this will be between around about 1.2 and 1.6, depending on what your daily activity is. So someone who has a very manual job and trains 5 days a week will probably be at about 1.5, 1.6. Someone who has a very sedentary job and who doesn't move around a lot and doesn't work out a lot will be about 1.1, 1.2. And these are the two elements that incorporate how many calories you should be aiming for in the day for maintenance. So what we do is we have our RMR, and then we multiply that by the personal activity level here, and that gives you something called your TDEE, which is total daily energy expenditure. Some people also call it EER, which is energy expenditure rate, both the same things. And some people have all these other weird abbreviations, and it's like total daily energy expenditure without exercise or whatever. You know, for the purposes of simplicity and not getting too confused, just think about these two. Now, when we work out how many calories we've got, we can do it manually. I would always use a calculator. There is a rule of thumb. If you're a male, you can just times your body weight by 24, I think it is. And if you're a female, you times the body weight by 22. The reason for that is that males on average, and this is really on average, so it's not something I'd recommend you do, but for a rule of thumb, your body weight times by 24, males burn about 100 calories per hour. And this is where you get the 2,400 calories for a male, 2,200 for a female calculation that people say you should be aiming for. But for most people, that's not correct. You know, most people have very different lives as to what the average is, and you're never going to be the average person. Okay. Just going to rub that out so we've got more space to work on. But so if you go to, let me just hopefully show you this. This is my calorie calculator on beaconnutrition.com. All you need to do is to go in, put your data in there. So I'll give you an example. My height. Oh, let's just go into there. Go into that. So all you do is, so my height is about let's say it's 154. I don't know, maybe. And then my age, 42, and my current body weight, which is about 85. Then daily activity job. I'm very sedentary, even though I own a gym and work in a gym. Most of my work is spent here behind the screen. So I'm around about, I would say, lightly active. And then my exercise activity, well, obviously I'm smashing it in the gym all the time. So I'm about 5 sessions or more per week. That may or may not be correct. Now, what you'll find is the calorie calculator is giving you these equations here, these numbers. So you'll see right here, it's got base metabolic rate, which is 1608. My maintenance calories, that's my calories for me to stay exactly as I am, not gain any fat, not lose fat, maybe not gain muscle, not lose muscle. And then it's giving me a fat loss calories per day, which is basically the maintenance calories minus 500. Now that's, when you're working this out, minus 500 should be the lowest you go. Where you should be aiming for is somewhere between the fat loss calories and the maintenance calories for your calorie deficit, if you're looking to lose body fat. And it'll also give you some ideas for protein, carbs, and fats, and I'll show you how that's worked out in a minute. Okay, so feel free to go and do that if you want to. So once we've got our calories, what I'm going to do is going to work on a very much an average thing here, so we can work out the calories and stuff. So I'm going to work on my own calories. So how much protein? Now, remember at the beginning of the talk, I said about that there's a scope of protein that you need to be in. Now, the research on this has sort of said that, oh, where's my pen? You need to be between about 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo. Now, this, again, if you're very overweight, this is going to be skewed a little bit. So what they do say is look at what your lean body weight is. Now, for most people who are looking to lose around about maybe a max stone in weight, this will be relevant. This figure will be relevant. If you've got more than a stone to lose, I would probably get an idea about what your ideal body weight is and work on that. Otherwise, if you're 130 kilos and you're eating 2 grams per kilo, that's a lot of protein to eat in a day for someone who's looking for weight loss. Okay, so this guide is not for everybody. You have to adjust it for your weight. Now, 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo is around about where the research said is optimal. So anything between that level during the day is optimal for muscle building. Now, it seems a fairly big scope there, and that's because there's research covering all that range there. So Normally I try and aim for right in the middle of 2 grams per kilo for me. I'm about 85 kilos. So that is times by 2 is 170 grams. So to build muscle, this is optimal building muscle, not maintenance. So to build muscle, I need to be aiming for about 170 grams of protein per day. But I can drop down to anything to 1.6, whatever that is, times by 85, and I can go up to 1.2 and still be in the optimal range. But remember what I said, going over 2.2 is not that big a deal. So don't worry if you ever go over, it's not that big a deal. The other thing to think about here is that the sort of the malnutrition level for protein here is 0.9 grams per kilo. And that's important because a lot of the people I work with, they don't eat enough protein. And some people I've worked with have been below this level. Now, 0.9, that's a tricky way to work out. So I just say like 1 gram per kilo. So for me, for absolute maintenance, so I don't lose muscle, I'd want to be 85 times by 1 is obviously 85 grams per day. So as long as I'm eating 85 grams of protein per day, I'm not at any risk of losing muscle tissue. Now, there's a few caveats there. If I go to the gym for 5 or 6 hours a day and smash weights, I'm probably going to be depleting myself to a point where the protein that I'm ingesting is not going to be enough to rebuild my muscle tissue. But that's an extreme example and not one that many people do. So, and also, if we look at the absolute base level, that's 1.2 grams per kilo. So if you're aiming for an absolute base level of I must hit this target a day just to be able to maintenance my muscle and make sure that I'm erring on the side of building, 1.2 grams is where it should be. So 85 times by 1.2 is, get my calculator out because I haven't done this calculation previous. So 85 times by 1.2, so 102. So it's 102. So I equate that to 105. Always there on the slightly up. Now the reason why you do this working out is because this is the gold star area. That's my crappy gold star there. And let's make it yellow so it looks nice. Okay, so that's the gold standard. That's where I want to be. I definitely don't want to be here at 85. So I need to definitely be over 85 per day. And ideally, if everything else went, I'd want to be at 105. So that would be just about cover the bases. So if you have those 3 figures in mind, then you can salvage what is potentially a bad day by making sure you hit your minimum and then trying to top it up to this level. A lot of people get annoyed that they haven't hit this every day, and that's not worth stressing about. We're looking at this figure here as a target, but this figure here is a minimum, and this allows you to manipulate calories a little bit better. Okay. Did you say 2.4 or 24 for men? It's that calculation is 24 times by your body weight. So if I was going to work out a rule of thumb for my calories, I get my calculator again. So 24 times by 85 for my body weight. I really should have said my body weight was 100 kilos. That'd been so much easier for my calculation. But here we are. Right. So that'd be 2040. So if I was going to work out my calories, a sort of rule of thumb of maintenance, it'd be there. But I know that that's wrong for me because I exercise a lot and I eat a lot of protein and I've got a lot of muscle. So I know that's wrong for me. But if you want a ballpark figure about your calories where you should be eating, that's what you can do on a rule of thumb. But you don't need to do that because my calorie calculator works that in 2 seconds for you. So you don't need to do that. But it's a rule of thumb if you want to. Let's have a look at the questions. Okay, if I want to be in a deficit, would you still keep protein high? Yeah, we're going to come on to that, Paul, in a minute. Okay, so as a quick overview on protein. How many carbs and fats should we be having? Now, there's an easy way to work this out. With fats, I always say at a very low weight is 0.5 grams per kilo for fats. Now, again, if you're very overweight, you want to have a little think about this, because if you are 130 kilos, and that is a lot of people I work with start at that level, 135 kilos is going to be 65 grams of fat a day, which isn't that bad, but it's also going to take a lot of their calories up from for their weight loss from fats. So you need to be a little bit realistic here. It is 130 kilos my real weight, or should I need to lose some weight there? For most people, that low figure, and that's the low end figure, so 0.5, I normally wouldn't drop below that, because you need fats for certain body functions. And if you go too low on fats, you tend to start to get unhealthy. So this is the lower end. Normally, I don't go above 0.7 grams per kilo of fats. So anywhere between that is about right. Now, the reason why I'm discussing fats first is because carbohydrates, there are certain guidelines as to what you should have. But if you've worked out your calories and you've worked out your protein, you then need to work out what your minimum fats are before you can work out your carbs. And it works like this. So say we've got, what did I go for there? 170 grams of protein. So, and let's say I'm 2,500 calories. Okay, just for argument's sake, it's worked out that my maintenance is 2,500 calories. If I have 170 grams of protein, times that by 4, because protein is 4 calories per gram, and you get, calculator time again, 170 times by 4. So that'd be 680 calories. And what you've got to then do is minus that from your total calories for the day. So 2,500 minus 680. And I'm left with 1,820. Now I need to take off the fats that I'm having. And if I do that, I'll know how many calories from carbohydrates, and I can work backwards to get my carbs. So if I'm going for 0.5 grams, so 0.5 grams here times by 85, which is my body weight, that would give 85 times by 0.5. Again, I should have just said my weight was 100. It would have been a lot easier. So you've got 42.5. For fats, you need to times by 9, because there's 9 calories per gram. So that gives me 383. Okay, so this is fats calories. So 1820 minus 383. And that gives me 1437, which is my carbs, not grams. Don't make that mistake. Carbs, calories. Okay, so I worked out what my total calories were here. Then my protein calories, minus that to give this, minus my fats to give my carb calories. And then I divide that by 4, because there's 4 calories per gram for carbohydrates. Divide by 4. And this gives you 360 grams of carbs per day. Okay, once again, you don't need to do that manual calculation, because on the calorie calculator, it does all that for you. Now, it's obviously worked out my maintenance calories are slightly different here, but it's got those figures from the calculations. Okay, but that is the manual way you worked out if you wanted to do that. Now with the carb calories there, it's given me 360, and divide that by our body weight, which is 85. So what that actually equates to is about 4 grams per kilo for carbs. And that's about right. If you're looking to exercise and build muscle and also be in a deficit, going up to about 4 grams per kilo of carbs is about where you need to be. So from all that, our rule of thumb would be, let's say, sorry, just go back here. So this is the thing you need to write down. Around about 2 grams per kilo of protein, around about 0.5 grams per kilo of fat. And I would say so if you're looking for what macros you need to eat, that's about where you need to be. So you can do that, obviously working out your body weight, you can do that just by you doing that calculation. again, that's all on the calorie calculator. And those figures you can manipulate a little bit as to what is your perfect day. Right, now the maths are out of the way, and that was a lot of maths, so sorry about that. Long story short, go and do the calorie calculator. That'll give you a better place to work from. How are we going to build our meals and allocate our calories so that we've got our perfect day? Because people I've worked with they've either had one have like 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day, 4 meals a day. So how do you work that to you? Now, in my book, Target Lean, which is, you can buy it on Amazon if you want one. There's a thing called I use something called the calorie system, and that works on calculate your calories and allocate them into meal blocks. And the way this works is like this. We have our calories for the day. So let's say it's 2,400. And then what we do, we allocate into meal blocks. And this is meal blocks that suit you, not that suit me or your mate or whoever. You got, do I want to eat in a day? You know, because a lot of people say, oh, if you eat more meals, it's going to spike your metabolism. And that's just not true, unfortunately. It doesn't spike your metabolism. The studies that have been done on meal frequency and calories, doesn't matter if you have 6 meals, if you have 3 meals, if the calories are the same during the day, you will have the same metabolic stimulus. So it doesn't matter if you have 6, 3, whatever, as long as those meals suit you and you're not going hungry. So normally, let's say we'll have 4 meals a day. And what we're going to do, we're also going to allocate a meal block to our snacks. Okay, so this is a meal, meal, and these are our snacks here. It's very important that you do allocate snacks. I know some people don't snack and they don't feel the need to snack, but most of us during the day at some point want a little bit of a nibble on something. It's just the way we are as humans. If you don't allocate yourself some snacks to have in that case, you'll end up overeating. So let's say we're having our 4 meals. So this might be breakfast. This might be your lunch. This might be your dinner. And this, if you're training in the gym, might be your post-workout meal. Now, this is just one example because some people train in the evening and go and eat their post-workout meal as their evening meal. Some people train first thing in the morning and their post-workout meal is their breakfast. That certainly is the case for me, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. So the post-workout meal could also be, you could just have more snacks, or you could have double it up with your dinner to have a bigger dinner, for example. So it absolutely is up to you how you allocate this. But what I would do is get your calories and then split them into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. And then at least you've got 3 main, like the normal traditional meals you've got. And then you've got an optional extra meal or some snacks. And then you've got your snacks here. Is that making sense to everybody just now? I mean, there's a lot of stuff to go through here. So just if there is anything that you're unsure of, just put it into the chat. We'll have a little bit of a sip so I don't cough everywhere. David, oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the book. 4,000 calories, James. Yeah, that's a lot. So make sure you do the calculator. That's a lot of calories. Okay, Paul, if you wanted to be in a deficit, would you still keep protein high? Yes, absolutely. And the reason for that is that protein can help stem your appetite and it can help make your meal feel more full. There's quite a bit of research proving that. So I always do say to people, let's try and keep the protein on the higher side and work on keeping the fats as low as possible. And then we've got the carbs for the training. However, when I've worked with women before, when the calories you've got to play with are not as much as say a guy who's got a lot of muscle, generally we work on the lower scale of protein first. So we'll be at that sort of 1.6 or even 1.4 if they're a very, very small woman, because you haven't got a lot of calories to play with there. You know, typically we're talking about 1,500 calories for a very small woman in a deficit. And if you say you put your calories up to, so your protein calories up to 2, you haven't got a lot to play with there. So I would, if the restriction of calories is an issue, I'd start on say 1.4, 1.6 of protein, and if you need to, you can build up. And the other benefit of keeping protein high, if you can do that, is, say for example you need to put more carbohydrates into your workouts because you are feeling the workouts leaving you more tired. Say if you're at 2.2 grams per kilo on protein, you can drop that down to 1.6 and do a direct swap of the protein calories into the carbohydrate calories, and you would still be at the same calorie amount for that day. That's getting into more intricacies though, so I'll leave that bit there. Right. I would consider myself a serious recreational lifter, but not a bodybuilder. Would you have the same macro split? Yeah, absolutely. 2 grams per kilo is where I'd always start with a serious lifter and keep those fats as low as possible. If you're in a surplus, you've obviously got more to play with there. I'm talking of a deficit here because most people I work with are looking for a small deficit. I know Lisa, when I worked with her before on Build, she was in a massive surplus and she needed extra food. So we had to bulk it up a little bit. Okay. But we're going to do a little bit on timing. So timing of supplements. Remember, this is the top here. We're at the top of our triangle here. 2 seconds. I'm just going to admit someone into the room. Okay, someone just joined again. So timing of your supplements, of your workout, of your food, and everything else is only really relevant when you've got everything else. So you've got your calories, you're getting your adequate protein in, you've got enough carbohydrates for your workouts. Then we can start thinking about timing, because ultimately the timing of a pre-workout meal or a post-workout meal is important, but you need to get the other stuff right. So there's 3 areas, there's 3 places where timing I think is important. And you've got your pre-workout. So you're going to fuel your workout here or charge your workout. You've got post-workout. So you're recovering from your workout. And I would also say pre-bed. Now, notice I haven't said anything about breakfast and stuff here, because breakfast is not an essential meal to have, as in if you don't have breakfast, you'll get fat or anything like that. The studies around breakfast are that it's not necessary for fat loss. However, what I would say is generally people I work with, unless there's a real reason for them to fast in the morning all the way till lunchtime, and I have worked with people who've done that, generally I would say that having something in the morning does potentially offset some of the snacking cravings you get later in the day. But this is a very personal thing. But I wouldn't say it's an essential thing to have breakfast. Pre-workout, what we're looking for here is some sort of carbohydrate. Now, there is some evidence around 30 grams of protein being beneficial for women in terms of burning more fat during exercise. But don't get all excited. It's not body fat. The way that women burn energy is slightly different to men, and they burn a higher percentage of their energy from fat, and especially during workout. So we can optimize this potentially by having 30 grams of protein, about 30 grams of protein in a pre-workout meal. Now, when I say pre-workout meal, this isn't in the gym having it before you go to the gym. This is about 30 minutes before. Okay, so this would be maybe a protein shake or something like that. I wouldn't have like a heavy meal before you train. It's probably not a good idea. Carbohydrates, there's some evidence to suggest that pre-ingestion of carbohydrates before your workout can give your body a physiological boost and also a mental boost. Now, I'm sure we've all had that, where we've been a bit down, ate a banana or something very small, and thought, right, I'm ready to do something now. There is that sort of psychological kick that the body gets from having carbohydrate intake. And that can carry over into your workout. But also, a lot of the research that's showing about pre-ingestion of carbohydrates does give, even when they've measured it, so they're giving people stuff which hasn't got any carbohydrates in it at all as a placebo. The people who have carbohydrates generally tend to get better results. This doesn't have to be a lot. I'm talking about like a banana, a couple of rice cakes, a muller rice. A lot of my clients have muller rices. Something as a small snack to give you a boost before you work out. It doesn't have to be a big meal. Okay, that's really emphasize that point. So it's just a small carb snack just to give you a little bit of a boost. If you're training in the morning pre-breakfast, I would absolutely recommend you do this, because there is some research showing that if you don't eat pre-breakfast, so if you don't eat pre-workout in the morning, as in you don't have breakfast, and then you don't eat at a significant time after your workout in the morning. So say like you got up, went to the gym, trained fasted, did a load of weights, and then didn't eat till say lunchtime. There is some evidence to show that can cause muscle wastage. So definitely, if you're not having anything pre-workout and you prefer to train fasted, that's fine, but make sure you do get your post-workout meal in afterwards. And I train first thing in the morning normally on Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays. I'll have like a bowl of Rice Krispies or something. That'll do me. That's my carbohydrate hit before I go to the gym, and I do have a better workout. Don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, if I don't eat and I go to the gym, I'm going to be burning more fats as fuel. It doesn't work like that. The body will still burn through glycogen, which is in your muscles, which is carbohydrate based. Your body can't turn around fat fast enough for that glycogen. It will do it to a certain degree, but you won't get the optimal workout. So definitely some sort of small carbohydrate snack before you go to the gym. Women, optional, 30 grams of protein. If your stomach can stomach that, okay. If they can't, then don't. The carbohydrates will do a decent enough job. And this pre-workout meal can be any time of the day. So it can be in the evening, in the morning, whatever. If you have lunch and then go training half an hour later, that's fine. You don't have to have a pre-workout meal if you've done that, because you've had some carbohydrates at breakfast, you've had some carbohydrates at lunch, and you go training, you've had enough carbohydrates. You probably don't need that carb kick. So pre-workout meal generally depends on where you are having it in the day and the time. Post-workout meal, I'd say, is probably one of the most important things and the things you should be focusing on first. Post-workout meal should be some sort of protein to restore your muscles. I would say, and there's a sort of a little calculation here, it's about 0.4 grams per kilo. So let's say I'm 85 kilos, that's about 33, 34 grams of protein for me. If you're a 100 kilo person, it's 40 grams of protein. If you're a 50 kilo person, it's 20 grams of protein. So ideally, anything between 20 to 40 grams of protein post-workout is where you want to be. There's research showing that anything over 40 grams doesn't really do anything in terms of building muscle. You get a certain amount of muscle building stimulus from eating protein. Anything over 40 sort of blunts off. However, remember I said at the beginning, more protein can be used for other things. So don't get stressed if, oh, my protein shake's 45 grams of protein. That's fine. Just have it. And then some people like to have some carbs. It's not essential you have carbs post-workout, as in the anabolic window. If you're having carbohydrates during the day or in the evening, your body will replenish your glycogen over that time. It takes about 24 hours. So don't worry too much about that. The only time I would say you do need a carbohydrate ingestion post-workout is, say, if you train in the evening late, let's say 7 p.m., and then you've got another session, let's say 7 a.m. in the morning. I would definitely be looking to have some sort of carbohydrates post-workout then, as well as my protein, and probably a pre-workout snack in the morning with my before I train, because there's a very short window between the two bouts of exercise. But most people train at the same time every day. It's not going to be an issue. And notice I'm leaving out fats here because it's not really that important. There will be some fats in the food you're having. It's not essential to have a certain amount of fat pre-workout or post-workout. And pre-bed would be potentially the other time for timing of, say, building lean muscle. There's a lot of research by a guy called John Tromelin, who's got a lab out in the Netherlands, and they've done stuff where they fed people protein before they went to bed. And what they found was about 40 to 50 grams of, they use casein, but whey would be okay as well, of protein pre-bed, led to a longer, what's called muscle protein synthesis spike. So this is, if we think about, we eat protein here, our muscle protein synthesis goes up, and it's sustained longer during sleep. Normally it would go down during sleep, and then what you've got then is till the morning when you wake up here, you've got a period where you're potentially in what's called muscle protein breakdown, where your muscles are being, for want of a better word, cannibalized by the body. This is a very normal process that happens in the body. The body needs to break down some of its muscle tissue to recycle it over and over. What they're saying here is that by having protein pre-bed, you can stop that, you can delay that happening for a little while, which means you still get the benefits of recycling your muscle tissue over. However, in terms of the how much muscle are we building, how much muscle are we breaking down balance, it's slightly less. So this is why like bodybuilders have like a massive protein shake before they go to bed. Also why some bodybuilders wake up mid-evening or mid-sleep to have protein. Don't do that. It's not worth doing. I'd have more sleep rather than waking yourself up. Okay, just going to have a little sip and check the questions. Okay, let's go through the pre-workout stuff. So what sort of pre-workout meal would you recommend? I take pre-workouts with caffeine, etc., but my pre-workout meal tends to be 3 hours before I work out. Okay, Vicky, that's not a pre-workout meal then. That's just a meal. If it's 3 hours before, that's just a meal. Pre-workout snack would be something very small, like I said earlier, like a banana, muller rice, slice of toast, half a bagel, that sort of thing. A quick carb snack to get in to elevate your blood sugar ever so slightly, so the body recognizes carbohydrates coming in, and that potentially can give you more output in the gym. And I tire halfway through my workout. Yeah, so this is the reason why you're not eating before your workout. So if you're eating carbs through the day and you're getting towards, and I'm presuming this is like a after lunch type situation with your training. If you're eating carbohydrates during the day, then you're already topping up your muscles with glycogen here. So you've got enough energy to train, but potentially you just need that little bit of a top up beforehand. So that's why a little snack beforehand would be perfect for that. Yeah, so you train at 5 p.m. Yeah, so just basically a quick snack, like something you can potentially eat in the car before you leave work, or just something you can have a little snack on. A banana is perfect, is what I give a lot of people. Just have a banana, something that's quick, portable, you can eat very quickly, and most shops sell it. Paul, what about Weetabix before workout? Yeah, I have Weetabix minis sometimes before I go to my workout in the morning. Absolutely fine. Not a problem at all, unless of course you've got an issue with wheat, and then it will be a problem. Okay, I realize we are close to 9 o'clock. I know we have some issues with downtime, so it's going to move on to the key points to remember here. Okay, so we talked about right at the beginning the triangle. So before you do anything with your nutrition, think about that triangle. Remember, we've got calories, protein, carbs, fats, and then timing up here. So always think about that triangle first. Do those things first before you build up, before you start to do anything more with your macros and tracking. Have your snacks as calories, not macros. Now, the reason I say this is because if you've gone all the way through the day and you've had the majority of your meals during the day, so you've had like 4 meals here, and you've had a decent amount of protein at each meal, some carbohydrates and fats and everything else, you probably hit your protein target with your main meals. And when you get to your snacks in the day, you don't need to really worry about hitting your protein targets there. So a lot of the time I talk to people, and you see this as well I've seen this on Facebook loads of times. People will say, oh, I've got 300 calories left, or whatever, 200 calories left for my day. I need to find a food which is 24 grams of protein, 2 grams of carbs, and 13 grams of fats to hit my macros. And then they have a headache about what this magical food is going to be. But if you've hit your minimum protein target, remember when we had those protein targets right at the beginning, if you've hit your minimum protein target, so you've hit your muscle protein synthesis. So I think for me, when I put it was about 120 or whatever it was, if you've hit that, then you're already done your protein. So just think about your calories. What calories have you got left? So if you've got, let's say, 150 calories left at the end of the day, I wouldn't worry about hitting your macros for those calories for the end of the day. You probably hit your macros by 80% anyway. Look for a snack that is 150 calories. Job done, and you've not stretched it. You've hit your calorie target. Remember, this is the most important thing here. You've hit your calorie target for the day. Don't stress about, oh, I need to have another 3 grams of protein. At that point, you've hit your protein. Don't stress about it, you know? And then the third thing to remember here is the law of averages. One day is not going to make you shredded or make you jacked. Just as one day is not going to reverse all the good that you've done. Whenever we're talking about calories and macros and everything else, what we're really talking about is the average over the week and the month and the 6 months. If you have one bad day where you've dropped your calories or you've overeaten or whatever else, okay, that's one day. You think about the other 10, 20 days in the month that you've hit that target. Well, on the law of averages, you've hit what it's the 80-20 rule here. So we're talking about if you can hit it 80% of the time, good, then this 20% of the time doesn't really matter. You're over the average in terms of the good work that you've done. And a lot of people I work with are like, oh, I've messed up the weekend. I've had one day on the weekend, I've binged and everything else. And when we look at their data, we look at their graphs and we look at all the trends and everything else, it is minimal. It's like a blip. It's like that much. It doesn't matter. But it matters to them massively. And then what happens is they overeat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they do mess up their diet. So think about, and this is why tracking is important. If you've hit your calories over the course of a couple of weeks and everything's been spot on, you've been in your deficit, you've been gradually losing weight, having that one day, and you can see that if you track your calories, you can see that one day, it makes no issue whatsoever. But in your mind, it will. So think about the law of averages whenever you're looking at your calories. Okay, there's a few questions come in, which I'll sort out in a minute. Okay, so action points for after this is, firstly, go and work out your calories. Go onto my calorie calculator or another calorie calculator if you want to. Work out your calories for whatever goal you've got. I haven't shown it here, but I do have another calorie calculator for muscle gain, and that is BKM Nutrition, and it's muscle with a hyphen gain calorie calculator. Okay, very obvious. If you put that into my site, if you just put muscle with an asterisk, it will probably pop it up. And that will give you a surplus and calories for a surplus, or you can use the calorie calculator for a deficit. Remember that the deficit is going to suggest is going to be 500 calories. That's the lowest level. You want somewhere between the lowest level and the maintenance. Anywhere between that will still be a deficit, and you'll still make progress in terms of fat loss. Then once you've worked out your calories, if you're happy with that, have a stab at working out your macros using some of the stuff I've said here today. Remember, calorie calculator will work that out for you, but it's only a guide. In the calorie calculator, it uses the calculation 1.8 grams per kilo for protein, 0.5 grams per kilo for fat, and then what's left over is the carbs. Okay, so just so you know, that's the metrics I've used for that calorie calculator, and that will sit you about right where you need to be. Okay, so all that complex maths I did earlier, you don't need that. I'm just showing you what goes into it. Then when you've got your calories, allocate your meals. So be really honest with yourself. Can you get away with 3 meals and a load of snacks in a day? Or do you need 4 meals and some snacks? But allocate your calories over the day. And then once you've done that, you can use something like MyFitnessPal or Eat This Much or Chronometer or NutriCheck if you want to use tracking software. And you can actually work out the meals and the foods you like to hit those calories for those meals and snacks. And then you can think about building yourself a little diet for the day, a little eating plan for the day. And then plan what you're going to do. Now, remember, we're talking about 80-20 here. I don't expect anybody to hit 100% of the time, because I don't. Certainly I don't. If you can get it right most of the time and you can do it consistently for most of the time, you'll start to make progress. I had a client come in today. He's quite overweight. He's making very small progress. The only thing we've done with him is look at calories, and all he's been doing is eating to his calories for the last couple of months or whatever. It's very slow progress because he's got a lot of inbuilt habits for overeating, but because the only thing he's focusing on is eating to his calories, he's losing weight. And he's also going to the gym and doing some workouts. So the benefit there is he's training to increase his calorie output, and he's sticking to his calories by eating ready meals and stuff like that. But the major important thing, he's at the bottom of that triangle. And just recently we started introducing, let's track your meals on one of the apps. and he's doing that, but he's doing it like probably half the time. But because it's only a gradual progression, it's very easy for him to do that. So don't think you have to get it right all the time, and get it right first time. Go with what works for you and what you're comfortable with doing. Once you've done that and you've done it as a habit and you do it consistently, then move up to the next level. Don't try and do everything at once. Okay, I'm just going to have a look at some of the questions. James, I drink lemonade while I work out. Well, as long as it's diet lemonade with no calories in, that should be okay. I wouldn't drink lemonade with sugar in. There's no benefit to doing that intra-workout. Not really, unless you're working out for more than 2 hours. Paul, when you're trying to lose weight, some weeks you say you lose 2 pounds and 1 week you put 1 pound back on. Yeah, that's just the way the body works sometimes, Paul. You'll go for, you have a nice little drop and then a plateau, and then sometimes it'll go up and then it'll go down. That's just the way the body works. But if you're being consistent with this 80-20, if you're doing it right most of the time, that consistency will lead to a result at the end. Okay. Now, sometimes if you're in a plateau for a long period of time, you might need to go back and reassess your calories, because if your weight drops significantly, if your movement during the day has dropped a little bit, say you started a new job or something like that, that might affect your calorie output. So you might need to go and do that recalculation again, and be honest when you do that calculation. People say, yeah, I'm really active 5 days a week workout, and their workouts are not the best workouts, then are not that energetic, let's just say. So make sure you are being honest with yourself. I always err on the side of like less, so I know that I'm definitely hitting that deficit. Okay, so just, I know it's right at 9 o'clock, so we've overrun slightly. So just want to say 2 minutes. Everything I've said here today is all the stuff that we do on the build program. We calculate your calories for you. We do a diet plan for you. All that stuff I talked about is all the stuff that we do on the build program. And talks like this and accountability meetings where we give out helpful advice, this is what happens on the build program. Now, I'm not going to spend ages trying to pitch you anything or trying to sell you anything. The build program works. It gets results for people. There's people on this call who have been on build and have done very well on it, and they get incredible results. So I don't need to really push it that much and sell it that much. But because it's Black Friday, we are having a little deal. If you're interested in that, just drop me a DM afterwards. I will follow up this webinar with a little email to see how you found it and if it was informative and if it was helpful. And if you're interested in talking about build, then just let me know there. People have been on build, they have got really good results. I'll just leave it there. Right, let's go to the questions and the Q&As. If I have missed any of your questions, please do put it into the chat in a minute. I'll look at that while I'm doing it. Appreciate that I'm looking at that and trying to talk at the same time. Okay, so strategies easily to get enough. This was macros in your diet. Dave, honestly, with that thing, if you're eating a balanced diet, if you're eating fruits and vegetables, complex carbohydrates, lean proteins, I don't think you should be worrying too much about the micronutrients. If you are, you can take a multivitamin and that will sort that out. That's one of those. I mean, if we're talking about the triangle, that's up here. It's really it's not that worth worried about if you've got a decent diet. If there's something you think you're worried or deficient in, then you can probably get a test for that. Normally, I would go for like a blood test with someone like a Medichex or someone like that. They'll be able to tell you if you're deficient in anything. But honestly, for most people I work with, that's the last thing we ever think about. And it's probably something that you're worrying about for no reason, unless there's a specific thing that's happening which you think you're deficient in it. Paul's question here, is Paul on today? Just check. I think he was on earlier, but he wasn't. He doesn't think he's on now. So creatine or glutamine. Creatine, I'd say, is essential. Well, not essential because you can survive without it, but there's so many benefits to it. Creatine, 5 grams per day. Just having a protein shake after you work out. Glutamine, no. Sorry about that. Internet dropped off again. Sorry about that. Yeah, Fro's talking about glutamine peptides. Yeah, you don't need them. Long story short, don't bother buying them. Waste the money. EAAs, I would say that no, you probably don't need them. Some people like vegans and vegetarians might benefit from EAAs because it can be hard to get the amount of EAAs that they need from their diet alone, especially if they're in a calorie deficit. So that'd be probably the only reason why I would say to have them. I do have EAAs when I train, only because there's a minor 1% potential benefit from having them in terms of reducing muscle soreness. Most people don't need them. Certainly for an ergogenic aid, as in anabolic aid, makes you more muscly or anything else, probably not. So it's not going to harm you if you have them. It might give you a 1% boost, but it's not essential. So don't think you have to have them. Hot or cold protein. Well, if you like eating cold chicken, then knock yourself out. Personally, I prefer to cook my food. And back again. I think I better get this wrapped up quickly before Zoom kicks me out completely. We covered this massively, so I'm not going to go into that anymore. Can you have too much protein? I think I covered that. No, not really, unless you've got say kidney disease or something like that. No. Can you have not enough carbs? Absolutely, you can have not enough carbs, and this is something that I do find with a lot of clients. They're potentially not eating enough, as in pre-workout, not eating enough to give them the energy. Tom's gone to cook some chicken. Yeah, Vic. Yeah, I'm gonna heat it up in the microwave, bodybuilder style. Okay, Stephen, I try and hit my protein goal as my primary target. Yeah, I think I covered that pretty well. And food prep, Dan's not on today, so he's one of my friends, so I'm not going to cover that, Dan. Come on to the next one, and then you'll get your answer. And we have talked about that because he's a former client, so I'm not going to go into that again. Okay, cool. Yeah, David, Zoom does start to act up after an hour. It's not the best, is it? Okay. Any more questions? Please put them in the chat. I know it's 9:15, so I don't want to keep people too long here. What about PEDs like tests when getting body fat down? That's a discussion for another seminar, I think. I think, Paul, that's not even on the build wheel. That'd be something that we discuss on some maybe on the prep body on the prep podcast. I'll discuss that with Paul. Certainly not going to do it here. Long story short, a little bit of test probably going to help you, but I'm not going to say do that because that's not the best advice. And it does depend on your age as well. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming. I realize we've had issues with technology and all sorts of stuff, but I hope that you got decent information and you got something from that today. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And like I said, I'm going to email everybody afterwards, get some feedback or you can reply and give me some feedback before I've done that. Great. Thank you very much and enjoy your evening. Bye for now.